Instagram tends to present itself as a polished, curated world, but that same structure, location sharing, public visibility, constant updates, has also made it the backdrop for some deeply unsettling real-life incidents. Unlike anonymous forums, these stories often involve identifiable people. When you examine them closely, what stands out is how ordinary behavior, posting photos, responding to messages, sharing routines, can unintentionally open doors to something much darker. One of the most widely discussed cases is that of Bianca Devins. Her story is particularly disturbing because of how Instagram was used not just before the crime, but as part of it. Bianca was a teenager who had built a presence online, sharing aspects of her life in a way that felt typical for someone her age. She connected with people through social media, including a man she eventually met in person. Their relationship, as later understood, was complicated and emotionally intense, but not outwardly alarming in a way that would have triggered immediate intervention. The horror began when the man murdered her and then used Instagram to post graphic images of the crime. These images spread rapidly before they could be taken down, exposing a large number of users to something deeply traumatic. What makes this case uniquely chilling is the fusion of violence and digital exhibition. The perpetrator didn't just commit the act, he broadcast it, turning a private crime into a public spectacle. Instagram, a platform built for connection and self-expression, became a vehicle for something grotesquely opposite. The aftermath revealed how difficult it is for platforms to respond in real time. Even as moderators worked to remove the content, it was being copied and reshared faster than it could be contained. This created a ripple effect where the violence extended beyond the immediate victim, affecting countless viewers. The case also raised questions about online relationships, particularly how quickly intimacy can form between people who have never met in person. One theory often discussed is that the perpetrator had developed an obsessive attachment fueled by constant online interaction, where the boundaries between reality and digital persona became blurred. The story has a clear resolution in terms of the criminal case, but its psychological and cultural implications remain unresolved. Another deeply unsettling Instagram-related case involves Gabby Petito, whose story unfolded in a way that felt almost like a slow-motion revelation through social media. Gabby and her fiancé documented their cross-country trip in a series of carefully curated posts. Their Instagram feed presented a picture of adventure, love, and freedom. To an outside observer, everything seemed idyllic, but that curated image masked a far more troubling reality. As Gabby's family lost contact with her, people began to scrutinize her Instagram posts more closely. Small details that had once seemed insignificant started to take on new meaning. Captions, facial expressions, and even the timing of posts were analyzed for clues. The platform essentially became a digital timeline that investigators and the public could piece together. When her disappearance turned into a confirmed homicide, the contrast between the online image and the real-life outcome became one of the most haunting aspects of the case. What makes this story particularly complex is how Instagram functioned as both a mask and a source of evidence. On one hand, it allowed the couple to present a version of their lives that hid underlying tensions. On the other hand, it preserved moments that could later be re-examined. The ending, with the identification of her fiancé as the primary suspect and his subsequent death, provides a form of closure, but not a complete one. Questions about what exactly happened in the final days remain partially unanswered. Theories around this case often focus on the pressures of performing a perfect life online. Maintaining a certain image can create strain, especially in close relationships. There is also the idea that constant documentation may have amplified existing issues, turning private conflicts into something that felt inescapable. The story lingers because it reveals how easily perception can be manipulated and how difficult it is to distinguish between authenticity and performance in a digital space. A third case that highlights a different kind of danger is that of Chloe Ayling, a model who was abducted after being contacted through social media, including Instagram. In this situation, the platform was used as a tool for targeting. Chloe had an online presence that made her visible to potential clients, which is common in modeling. However, that visibility also made her accessible to someone with malicious intent. She was lured to what she believed was a legitimate photo shoot, only to be kidnapped and held captive. The perpetrators had studied her online profile, understanding enough about her work and expectations to create a convincing scenario. This premeditation is what makes the case especially chilling. It wasn't random. It was calculated using information that was publicly available. During her captivity, her online identity continued to play a role, as the kidnappers attempted to leverage her status for financial gain. The situation eventually ended with her release and the arrest of one of the perpetrators, but the psychological impact of the experience was profound. Unlike the previous stories, this one has a clearer resolution in terms of justice, yet it still raises unsettling questions about how much personal information people unknowingly provide online. One theory that emerges from this case is the concept of digital profiling, where individuals can be targeted based on the details they share publicly. Photos, locations, routines, and professional activities can all be pieced together to form a surprisingly complete picture of someone's life. This doesn't mean social media is inherently dangerous, but it does highlight how it can be exploited in ways that are not immediately obvious. When you look at these three stories together, a pattern begins to form. Instagram is not the cause of the danger, but it acts as an amplifier. It accelerates connections, increases visibility, and preserves moments in a way that can later be reinterpreted. The fear comes from how ordinary actions, posting a photo, replying to a message, sharing a location, can intersect with someone else's harmful intentions. What makes these stories particularly unsettling is that they don't feel distant or extraordinary. They are rooted in behaviors that millions of people engage in every day. And unlike fictional horror, where the threat is often external and clearly defined, these cases show how the line between safe and unsafe can be thin, shifting, and sometimes invisible until it's too late.